Let's start the debate. The first question goes to Andrew Scheer, and the theme will be the economy. Nova Scotians are among the highest taxed people in Canada. The current Prime Minister says a carbon tax is needed to encourage people to innovate, to reduce carbon emissions, and grow the Canadian economy. What is your plan with respect to carbon pricing and the economy? Kevin O'Leary.
We already have a shining example of why all this green initiative doesn't work on a tax basis. It's called the province of Ontario. $308 billion in deficit, much of it as a result of failed green policies. No carbon tax is necessary. Many people don't realize this. Canada has 1.2 billion acres of wetlands and forest. I'm an environmental studies student. What happens is these are carbon sinks. They absorb 2.1 to 2.6 tons of carbon a year. Canada actually absorbs 4 times more carbon than it emits. Canada is not the problem. What we have to do is simply provide goals for industries to achieve in terms of emissions and let them innovate. Leave the capital on their balance sheets, leave the capital on their income statements. Don't give money to government when it's unnecessary. We could shut down the entire economy of Canada and it wouldn't make a difference. We have to sell our technology to the Chinese and the Indians. That's how we'll solve emissions.
Second theme is justice, and Stephen Blaney will be the first to respond. Late last year, a judge in Ontario struck down a mandatory 1-year jail sentence for a perpetrator found guilty of sexual interference of a 15-year-old girl. Here in Nova Scotia, a young man was acquitted of sexual assault because he believed the sleeping victim had given consent. Do you feel the laws and penalties around sexual assault are adequate? If not, how would you change them? Kevin O'Leary.
You know, I travel the world as an investor, and I go to some of the harshest places on earth in doing so. I wish I could take everybody with me here to go to some of these countries where law is just a concept. I have a very hard time criticizing our justice system or the men and women that enforce it in this country, when every time I come home, I want to get off the plane and kiss the ground here. This is an extraordinary country. We're the luckiest people on earth. What we enjoy in freedoms, what we have in inclusive societies we've got, and the system that actually supports us, the men and women that enforce it, you have to come with me and see what the other side looks like. It's brutal. We are lucky, lucky, lucky. I can't criticize. I'm sorry. We're lucky.
We'll move on to question 3. Our third theme is health care. Mr. O'Brien will be the first to respond. Healthcare spending in Nova Scotia represents approximately 40% of government spending. Awareness of mental illness has been growing in Nova Scotia, along with a significant increase in people attempting to access mental health care. Government spending regularly exceeds planned spending. What is your plan to address mental health in federal health care transfers, and would this be a priority? Kevin O'Leary.
Actually, the problem with healthcare as it's constructed now in Canada has a lot to do with the economy. You saw recently the squabbles on transfer taxes because what's really occurring is Canada does not work at 0.7% GDP growth. The system does work at 3%. We have to find a way to get everything working, not just for healthcare, for education, for military, and for our social net. The bottom line, the reason we have these long wait times for cataract and hip replacement surgeries, etc., is because the cupboard is bare. You can't make it work. Whether you transfer or whatever structure you want will not work unless we get growth back to 3%. That is the core problem. Now, we have a Health Act here that puts it back to the provinces, but the transfer payments are really what the debate is about. You saw how contentious that was just a few weeks ago. That's because the economy is not growing. This problem will not go away. It's only going to get worse, and wait times will even extend. Have to get to 3%. That's the primary mandate of anybody up here on this podium.
Kevin O'Leary will be the first to answer the next question. The theme is jobs. Nova Scotia is approaching a crisis. The province has faced prolonged, slow economic growth coupled with an aging and shrinking population. This is indicative of economies across Atlantic Canada. Given the serious demographic challenges and weak performance across the economy, what is your plan to support and grow Nova Scotia's economy and create jobs?
It's the role of government to provide a rich soil under which any entrepreneur, large or small business, can plant the seed and flourish as the business grows. That is the basic premise and mandate upon which any government should form. You can't even grow a weed here anymore. These policies put by your own Liberal leadership, it's a disaster. The whole idea is to be competitive so that capital from all around the world that wants to develop opportunities, particularly in resources in Atlantic Canada, has the opportunity to do so. The capital is fluid. It goes to the place of least resistance and highest opportunity. Corporate taxes are insane in Atlantic Canada. They've got to come down. All the regulation here is punitive to job growth. It makes no sense. You know, when I'm Prime Minister, what I'm going to do is provide a form of economic therapy motivation to any province that doesn't get online. Ask Kathleen Wynne how it's going.
This is the final question of the evening and also the final opportunity for candidates to use their rebuttals. A voice for Atlantic Canada is the final theme. Kelly Leitch will be the first candidate to respond. Atlantic Canadians sent 32 Liberal MPs to Ottawa in the last election. With all our MPs and provincial premiers being Liberals, many in our region are starting to feel taken for granted. Under the Liberals, our Toronto MP is now the minister responsible for ACOA. Our voice on the Supreme Court was almost stripped away, and much needed and promised infrastructure dollars have been slow to come our way. Worse, none of our provincial governments appear ready to stand up to Ottawa. As leader of the Conservative Party, and then as Prime Minister, what specifically will you do to make sure Atlantic Canadians are fairly represented in Ottawa? Kevin O'Leary.
You know, Atlantic Canada represents a huge opportunity for the Conservative Party. Most of us can trace our DNA, our early heritage, back to appear just a few hundred yards from here. My father, Terry O'Leary, came here in the 40s. My mother, Georgette Bukalam, and her family, Lebanese immigrants. I look at this fantastic opportunity this way. You have to appeal to the people. It'll be a personal failure for me if I can't turn every Lebanese immigrant in Atlantic Canada into a card-carrying Conservative. They make great food, and they're great entrepreneurs. And if you're Irish, you're mine. We're going to go together here, back to Ottawa. But this is a huge opportunity. Remember, we have to build this party back to what Harper had on his first majority mandate, 300,000 members. We're under 100 now. I've got to expand the base big time. Everybody counts. This is a huge opportunity right here in Atlantic Canada.
We will now begin the 90-second closing statements. Kevin O'Leary.
Thank you. The last election, I stood in line on Bloor Street with my son, who's 20 years old, and was going into the polling booth, and I said to him, Trevor, you know, we're a Conservative family. You're gonna vote Conservative, right? He said, I don't think so, Dad. I've seen a different direction. For people my age, I'm going a different way. And I said, you must be kidding. If you want to come home, you're going to change your mind about that. Both my daughter and son voted for Trudeau. That's a fact. Now, I have a very high bar, and everybody else in this room does too. We need to win them all back, all of them. Our party has to be their future. That is the whole point of this. The task is, who can get these people back on side with us, number one. We have to expand our base materially. We've got to be at least 60% of their choice has to be Conservative, or we cannot win a majority mandate. Number two, I'm going to spend the next 2 years shining the light of transparency on Trudeau. I can read a balance sheet. I can read an income statement. When I saw he wanted to run deficits for 38 years, leaving my children in debt, $1.5 trillion, that's it. There's not a chance in hell he's going to do that. Because I'm going to scrape him out of there. That's what's going to happen.
And you have been watching the Conservative leadership debate from the Western Nova Scotia and Halifax. Our windows closing.
Oh, no. All right, let's see if we can get Congressman Collins back. Obviously, we just lost the satellite feed. That sucks.